I put a poll up on my community tab asking what you guys would like to see more content of. One of those is book recommendations. So here we go. Here are my best books of 2024 that I think you will love. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. I cannot wait to talk to you about some of my favorite books that I have read this year. You guys said you wanted book recommendation videos. I could have done like a fantasy romance or dark romance recommendations. I am going to do a fantasy romance like for beginners who really haven't dabbled in fantasy at all or very little. That will be coming next week, but this video is going to be my favorite books of 2024 so far, and it's not that all of these are going to make it to my list at the end of the year. It's just books that I would recommend to you for whatever you are looking for. I have dark romance, fantasy romance, contemporary romance. I got a little bit of everything for you. So definitely in my comments section, please let me know if any of these books are ones that you are looking forward to picking up. Have you read them? What do you think of them? Remember, no spoilers in the comments, just in case if you spoil it for somebody else. So let's get into the books. Before we do, just remember, check my description box below. I have a link to my Bookish Box ambassador link where you can get 10% off using my code that is there on the website. I also have my Pango Books account as well, and my Patreon. Everything's down below. So let's get into it. I'm going to talk about all the books that I don't own physically yet and get those out of the way. I don't have these divided up into genre, so it may be a fantasy romance and then it may be a dark romance, but we're just gonna roll with how I have them stacked. The first book that I want to talk about is A Love Letter to Whiskey, specifically the 5th anniversary edition. This is a contemporary romance. Definitely check trigger warnings for this book because it does deal with some very hard-hitting topics. The reason why I say the 5th anniversary edition is because you get the book A Love Letter to Whiskey. Then you get the novella called Love Whiskey, and you get a little bit of extra bonus content from it that I just loved. I ate every word up. This book is dealing with two people who met each other in high school. They were friends. Of course, the girl is pining for him, but he's dating her best friend. It's kind of like right guy, wrong time. And it's wrong time every time because somehow the universe keeps putting them in the paths of each other over the course of like 12 to 14 years. And what they go through, like, I wanted to take the book and I wanted to shake it and throw it. I was screaming at the book because, you know, I was just like, can you guys just tell each other already? You know, can you guys just be together? And things in life didn't work well for them. I think that it really teaches people about how loving somebody doesn't always mean that the first time if it doesn't work out, it's over completely. This shows you that love can keep coming back and coming back into your life. Maybe don't hold it in. Maybe tell somebody about it. I really, really loved this book. I know that there are some mixed reviews out there. Some people say that they didn't like it because it was very toxic. These people were just not good for each other. But then you have others that kind of are like me, that are like, I loved it. I cried. I was there for the ride every single moment. So do with that what you will, but I highly suggest picking it up. It is a contemporary romance. Check your trigger warnings, but pick up the white cover edition if you want all of the content. The next one that I'm going to talk to you about is one that will be in my July wrap-up as well because I just read it this month. But it was an ARC that I got. Funny enough, I thought this book was a graphic novel. No. This is the novel version of the graphic novel. And so I was thoroughly surprised whenever I opened up the book and I was like, oh, there's words. There's words and not pictures. So this book is called Under the Oak Tree, Volume Volume 1 by Suji Kim. This is kind of like how you see those mangas that have the mangas with like the pictures and the graphics and everything, but then they come out with like the light novels where it's the whole story but just in a novel form. This is similar to that. So this webtoon bind up, I believe it's on the internet that you can read it. It's already through season 2. So this book wraps up all of season 1, basically. The whole storyline. I loved this book. I loved it so much that I pre-ordered the novel and the bind up of the graphic novel, and I can't wait to read the graphic novel because I am just obsessed with these characters. I will say this is a fantasy romance. I will say please check trigger warnings because there is a lot going on in here. Our girl, it starts out, she is basically the daughter of a duke, high society, privileged family, but she is treated so rotten and mean. He beats her because she has a stutter. She stutters whenever she talks, and so he thinks that if he keeps beating her, he's gonna beat the disability out of her. And that is just a horrible situation for our girl. That's how it starts out. And it also starts out with her being betrothed or actually marrying a guy named Riften, who basically she's like, he looks at me like he hates me, that I'm ugly, all of these things. And then like after their wedding night, he leaves the next morning, goes off to war. Our girl's like, did you just abandon me? What is happening? So now he's gone for 3 years. So she has stayed married to this guy, having no communication with him, and living in her father's house, still being beaten, still being treated like absolute rubbish, and it's not fair. And it had me in the feels, you guys. It really, really did. But this book, whenever Riften comes back in and is like, you're coming to live with me at our castle because that's where you were supposed to be this whole time, everything goes from there. You have all of these like paranormal, supernatural, fantastical creatures. You have ogres, werewolves, dragons, you have everything because Riften slayed a dragon and now he is like one of the biggest knights on the planet and everybody bows down to him, kind of thing. So our girl's trying to navigate things. She has a stutter. She thinks people don't like her. You guys, this story, I loved it. The disability rep was so amazing. The romance wasn't a insta love. I mean, it's a, we grew to love each other. We grew to trust each other. And the whole world is so vast and you learn about the politics slowly. You learn about what Riften was doing, what our girl was doing, just so many different things. And I am desperate for volume 2. I need volume 2 because I need to know what's happening. I hope that it's on NetGalley because I want to read it before it even hits the shelves like I did this one. It's going to be an instant buy for me. So if you guys like graphic novels and you like them in the form of like a novel format, definitely go and pick this one up. Fantasy romance, it's so good. Quite spicy. So please remember that going in. If you do not like spice in your books, this one you're not gonna like, so stay away from it. But if you really like your fantasy romance with spice, go check this one out. The final one that I am going to talk about that I don't own physically is a extremely dark romance. I know that I have some followers out there that do love the very dark, very unhinged, extremely spicy romance. So this one's for you. Listen up. I hope I have your attention because this is called Church by K.G. Roos, I think. This is book 1 in the Chapel Crest series. This book is so unhinged. Like from the beginning, we start out, our girl is on the brink of death. Okay, no lie, on the brink of death, and she ends up being sent to Chapel Crest, which is a religious school, but also an asylum, because her stepfather, after what happens to her in literally chapter 1, she doesn't want to talk anymore. She refuses to talk. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't even communicate, like writing down things or texting things. She doesn't even nod a yes or a no, like just no communication communication at all. But she can hear you because you're in her mind. So you understand what she's thinking and what she's feeling. So her stepfather thinks that he's been trying to beat the demons out of her, and he ends up sending her to Chapel Crest because it's her senior year. He doesn't want her around because it puts a bad image on him because he's like some religious guy, wants to look good in the community type of thing. So she goes to Chapel Crest, which is entirely unhinged. You have people in there that are psychopaths, people that are murderers. You have some good people in there, but there's a lot of bad. Okay, there's a lot of bad. And whenever I say a lot of bad, we are talking about the Watchers, which is 4 boys that have banded together. They basically run this entire school/asylum. The security guards don't even keep them at bay, nothing at all. So definitely go check this out if you are a very dark and very unhinged girly. Very spicy, but you're gonna want to check trigger warnings because whenever I say that it's unhinged, it's unhinged. It's so unhinged. But I like those from time to time. Not all the time, but every once in a while I dabble in some very dark romances. And I don't talk about them much here on my channel because I'm always like, are people gonna like them? And then I've had people hit me up on my Instagram saying, hey, do you like dark romances? Do you recommend anything? So here you go. Here's one for you. So let's talk about all of the physical books that I own that I want to recommend to you. These are in no specific order. They're a mashup of genres, mainly fantasy romances in here. You know, there's just a whole bunch going on. The first one is Queen of Roses by Briar Bolin. If you have frequented my channel for a long time, you already know that I talk about this so often. This is a fantasy romance. It's dark, not extremely dark, but I mean, there are dark undertones and dark themes in here. But our girl is basically on a quest to go get Excalibur for her brother Arthur, who is the king. This is kind of a loose retelling of like Camelot and King Arthur and Guinevere and all of that, but make it fae, make it fantasy. So good. I really loved this. Book 1 starts out, you're just kind of on your quest, but then at the end of this book, there is a cliffhanger that shifts the entire narrative of this story. It threw me for a loop. I went into book 2, it just progressively became something so much more than what we thought it was. I really, really loved it. There is spice, there is romance in here, there is a really good found family aspect in here if you look for those. If you like how there may be a mystery, you're trying to solve things. I mean, this book really has it all, and she is coming out with another book in October or November called On Wings of Blood, which is the start of a spin-off series in this world. So you meet the person who will head that series in this series, but it is so good. It is so good, you guys. If you like Arthurian retellings and Camelot, and you like your fantasy romance with fae, and you really like a mystery and how the world starts out kind of as like a little peanut. Okay, and then you get to book 2 and it grows to a walnut. And by the time you get to the 4th and final book, you literally have so big of a world and so much going on that you're just like devouring it because you need to know what happens. This author, Briar Bolin, does not hold any punches. She made me cry. She was not scared to do the unthinkable things to her characters. I really, really loved that. So I highly suggest this one if any of those tropes and things really spark your interest. So a little bit on the lighter side. Not a whole lot of dark themes in here and definitely no spice. Let's talk about Emmy and the Tudor King by Natalie Murray. Listen, this book, I never thought that I would say that I love like a YA new adult type book with absolutely no spice. It's closed door, fade to black, you just make it up in your mind kind of thing. Our girl Emmy gets a ring from her neighbor from a sale for like $5, wears it, falls asleep, ends up in 1580 Tudor England. I'm gonna tell you right now, our girl's trying to survive. She's trying to survive the Tudor court. She meets the king, King Nicholas, and they spark up kind of like a friendship type of thing, but whenever she goes to sleep with the ring on, she ends up back in modern time. So now she is trying to go back into 1580 Tudor England. She is trying to prevent some things that she knows is going to happen. Might end up falling in love with the Tudor king. Might end up trying to, run for her life. You just don't know. You need to go read it. It's a fast read. It's really, really good. I really love it that Natalie Murray made this trilogy as, clean, no spice, all of that, and then created an omnibus that was like a new adult version with a lot of spice added in. And I really like that because you still get the great story, the great romance, the fantastical nature of everything, but you also can pick, do you want it with spice or do you not want it with spice? And I really like that aspect of it because there's a lot of people out there that don't really want their spice in their books. And that is okay. This book is so good. No spice. There's kisses and things. And I mean, some things in your head, but nothing physical on page. So if you like a time travel romance and kind of like a mystery trying to save, the past and trying to, survive a medieval court, I highly suggest this series. I think you would be shocked. The next one is a newer read for me that I read in June as an ARC, and then I immediately bought a signed hardback from the author because it's so good, which is Princess of Air by Natalie Camarata, which is book 1 in the Elements of Royalty series. Book 2, which is called Prince of Waters, will be coming out, I think, January, February of next year. These are standalones in an interconnected world. You will want to read book 1 because book 2 will not make sense to you if you do not read book 1. But this is about the Princess of Air. She is the second born in this royalty family. In this world, basically the queen had all 4 of the elemental powers: earth, air, fire, and water. And that's how it's been from the beginning of time, that the royal queen has all 4 powers and passes it down to her one and only child. This queen decided that she was going to have 4 children and give each child a different element. So our girl is the Princess of Air. But not only is she the Princess of Air, but she is the spare. She's not going to be queen. And her older brother is the Prince of Earth. He is the heir to the throne. Our girl is betrothed to someone else in another country, another kingdom, for an alliance. But then all of a sudden, her mother and father decided that instead of it being the Prince of Earth, they wanted the people to choose who their monarch was going to be. So now all 4 of these siblings have to go through trials and not kill each other, not hurt each other, but, just show off their abilities and things like that, and then let the people choose. I'm gonna tell you what, this was so good. I absolutely loved it. The romance, I didn't expect the romance to be what it was. It is spicy, it is good, it's a friends to lovers romance, has elemental magic. It is so good. I really loved it, and I love the fact that the mystery that's going on in here is going to continue into book 2. So it's like an overarching plot, but each book will focus on one of the siblings and their romance and kind of how they're contributing to taking down the evil forces, keeping their kingdom alive. So I highly suggest, if you want something that has elemental magic that isn't too dense, that is something that you can just sink into and understand the world, I highly suggest checking out Princess of Air. It was really, really good. It caught me by surprise. I didn't expect for it to be as good as it was, but yeah, I can't get enough of it. The next one is like a paranormal romance, and I have read from this author before, but the author had a series called Millennium Wolves, and it was on the app called Galatea, where you could read so many chapters, but then you'd have to wait so many hours to read more, or you could pay to like have unlimited pages or something like that. Anyway, they ended up writing a book that is being published, and that is called Cloak of the Vampire by Sapper A. Inglard. I really, really love this. This is book 1 in the duology. Book 2 is coming out November, December time frame, so not too long. This is so good. It's spicy, it's dark, it has a really, really dark undertones. Basically, our girl is with her friend who are at a bar or whatever. Her friend ends up saying, that she was going to be back. She's upset. She storms off. She goes to check on her friend. She ends up going to the alley where her friend is. She thinks her friend is being killed, so she tries to stop it. In turn, gets kissed by this really hot guy. Wakes up. She's a vampire in this this whole world that she had no idea about. Now she's having to navigate it. And in this vampire world, they have different sections, regions, I guess, clans possibly, and all of the new bloods or the new vampires, they show off what they can do, and then all of these different like lords can basically auction for them. They can pay so much money for them. So it's good. It's a very unique story. It's very unique in the way of the backstory, the lore, the things that you find out in this book. The ending of this one was a shocker to me. I couldn't believe that's how the author went, in a good way. So I really can't wait to get to the second book. But if you do like paranormal romance and you like a little bit of spice, you like your vampires broody and alpha and all dominating, you will definitely want to pick this up. I really, really enjoyed it, and our girl is not having the best of times. So she struggles for a lot of this, and she has to make an alliance with somebody, and you'll never guess who she makes an alliance with. So definitely go pick this up if you like your vampire romances. A little on the lighter side, we're kind of bouncing back and forth. If you are a contemporary romance girly that wants a hard hitting book that is very heartfelt, definitely pick up 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. This book is going to gut wrench you, rip your heart out. You are going to sob uncontrollably, but in all of the best ways. Tilly Cole did a great job because Poppy and Rune live next door to each other. They grew up ever since they were children. They're best friends. They end up, you know, falling in love when they become teenagers and they become an item. But then all of a sudden Rune has to move back to Norway because his father is called basically back home. So he fights it. He's upset about it. I think he's like 15. They try to do the long distance thing. All of a sudden, a couple months in, Poppy stops responding to him, and the story goes from there because after a couple years he ends up back in the same house next door to Poppy, and he wants to know why she stopped talking to him. The story goes from there. You guys, this was a roller coaster. It was so good. It was heartfelt. It was so warming. The sweet high school romance and just everything about it. I loved it. So if you really like a contemporary romance that will create those emotions in you and make you sob your heart out, I really highly suggest picking this up because it was so good. All right, we have another fantasy romance, but that is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. This is book 1 in this Crimson Moth duology, which the second book is called Rebel Heir, I think is what it's called. Rebel Witch. It's called Rebel Witch. Listen, it's coming out in February, but this is a witch and a witch hunter, and it has a whole different dynamic than what you would think. The witch in here is our main girl, and she is high society, goes to all of these balls and everything, but at night, she is the Crimson Moth, trying to save her fellow witches from being killed. Now, she has to keep her identity secret because nobody knows that she's a witch. And she sees Gideon, and he is one, like, the leader of these witch hunters. So she tries to seduce him, woo him, get some information because she's trying to save somebody that knew her grandmother. In return, Gideon is trying to woo our girl because he thinks that she's the Crimson Moth. So he is wanting to get evidence of that. Lo and behold, what they both want is not what's going to happen. A love is going to blossom out of this whole courtship, and the story goes from there. It is so good. Like, you have Rune is the girl, and she is just trying to dodge Gideon and everybody else, trying to keep herself safe while saving others. You have Gideon, who is not wanting to fall in love with her, but is reluctantly more and more falling in love with her every single time he sees her, and he doesn't want to because he is so fully convinced that she's the Crimson Moth. The way that the cliffhanger is, I really can't wait to get into the second book because I can't wait to see how things are going to be resolved, what's going to happen in this world, what's going to happen to our girl. I mean, things are not looking good for anybody, and I'm curious. So if you like the witch and witch hunter vibes, the enemies to lovers, the whole secret identity thing where she is just sneaking around, definitely pick up Heartless Hunter. If you're in the UK, it's called Crimson Moth, but in the US, it's Heartless Hunter, and it was so good. Let's talk about another vampire paranormal fantasy romance that has a lot of spice in it. So you're not a spicy girly, you're not going to want to pick this up, but that is Blood Orange by Karina Halley. This is a duet, so both books have been published. You don't have to wait for another one to come out. This is about reincarnation, where our girl, she doesn't know it, but she's like a reincarnation of a reincarnation of a reincarnation. It's wild. But basically, our girl is a vampire hunter. She is tasked to find Dracula. Yes, the Dracula, the one that Bram Stoker wrote about. And she is tasked to kill him. So she enrolls in this university in Italy where he is teaching. His name is Valtu, not Vlad the Impaler, who everyone thinks is Dracula. His name is Valtu, and he is Dracula. But there is a lot more to the story. It's a lot more dense than what you think surface level. She ends up running into him, but then they kind of have an attraction to each other. There's a reason why they do, and he doesn't know it. She doesn't know it either, but yet then he finds out that it is, but he's trying to prove it to her. It's so good. But the ending of this, you guys, I immediately needed book 2. I was like, no, 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 Karina Halley, you can't do that. No, no, no. But she did. She went there. And so I immediately needed book 2. And so I was happy that it was already published. This is a spicy paranormal fantasy romance with vampires that are ruthless. You have the witch who is trying to kill them. So she's trying to like stay underneath the radar. There is a mystery element to it. There is reincarnation. It is really good. And I highly suggest this to anybody who does like their vampire romances. So if vampires are not your thing, fae are not your thing, even werewolves are not your thing, how about we talk about a Viking fantasy romance, which is called A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen. You guys, this is so good. It gives Vikings vibes. It gives Last Kingdom vibes. It gives so many good vibes in here. I can see why there are some people that don't like it. You really have to have somewhat of a liking towards Vikings, the TV show, or even The Last Kingdom, or even a little bit of liking of Norse mythology to really fully appreciate this book. I understand that. But hear me out, okay? This is good. You have our girl who is a shield maiden, which is like the prophesied person that is going to bring all of Norway together underneath one king. You have Bjorn, who is the son of the Jarl Snorri, and Snorri ends up getting our girl and takes her as like a second wife, but not like physically, just in name, because he thinks that if he controls her, he will be king of all of Norway. So Bjorn is tasked to watch over her, make sure that she stays safe, that she doesn't get killed. Lo and behold, a romance blossoms between both of them, and then they go on this quest where they both are having to fight their way out of this mountain. It is so good. It is not insta-lovey. It is enemies to lovers. But if you like any part of Norse mythology, if you like the TV show Last Kingdom with Uhtred, if you like Vikings, the TV show that had Ragnar and his 5 sons, you're gonna love this. You will eat this book up. It is so good. I love that it is a fantasy romance, but it has Vikings in it. It doesn't deal with fae. It doesn't deal with werewolves. It doesn't deal with any of the normal creatures. I highly suggest picking this up if you like any of those aspects. The last book that I'm going to talk about is The Other Side of the Mirror by Dana Evans. Did you think that we were going to talk about my best books of 2024 and not talk about the book so far this year that has single-handedly gotten me out of my book slump? Single-handedly. March, I was struggling. I was like, I'm not enjoying anything I'm reading. I'm just going to go on to NetGalley, see what there is. Got approved for this like within 24 hours. Started reading it, and I was so addicted to it that I sat on my couch for 2 days after coming home from work, staying up until 2 in the morning. I needed to finish this. I needed to read it. It was so good. It is a dark fantasy romance, so check trigger warnings. Our girl basically at the very beginning of it, she loses her entire family. She ends up having to live with her friend, which her friend loses her entire family. They end up growing up together, living together, going to college together. Our girl ends up going or enrolling into like, I think a master's program, but she has this problem. She doesn't ever commit to a relationship. She doesn't want that commitment, right? And she only has like maybe a couple weeks with them and then she's done. A long-term relationship. So she gets a text message from her boyfriend that he's at her house. So she goes to meet him. There is this random guy who shows up out of nowhere saying, don't go into the house. Things happen. Somehow she is thrusted into this whole new world that she has never known, that have fae, that definitely is not the modern world. And the guy that is with her has two friends with him, and it's kind of like a found family aspect. I absolutely love that about this. I love enemies to lovers, but what I really love is one of the taglines is, what if the fairy tale was always a lie? So everybody has been told this thing that if this happens, then we will be free of our curse. We will be free and back to how we were. Lo and behold, that might not be entirely true. You need to go read it to find out. Dana Evan did announce that the second book will be coming out, I think, at the beginning of next year. I'm ready for it. If you want to, it's on Kindle. Also, you can get the hardback with the pretty sprayed edges, but it is so good. So if you want a dark fantasy romance with a very unique twist and not following a fairy tale, because the fairy tale was a lie, definitely pick this up. Alright everybody, those are just some of my favorite books so far this year. Of course, I have many others. They weren't as highly rated, like they're not sticking with me where I'm thinking about these characters or this world as often. But let me know that you are still here. Leave me a comment down below. Definitely leave me a mirror or a crown emoji if you are still here in this video. Also comment and let me know, are any of these books ones that you have read, or are you gonna go pick up? I would love to know. But until next time, everyone, I hope you have a great day. Bye!